The lights of the Bravo clubhouse were blazing as Leanne Morgan, the Southern comedy queen, stepped onto the set of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. Her signature charm, folksy, warm, and dripping with Tennessee twang, had the audience buzzing with anticipation. Leanne, fresh off her Netflix special I'm Every Woman and promoting her new sitcom Leanne, was ready to share her relatable humor with Andy's viewers. The crowd, sipping cocktails and waving at the cameras, expected a night of laughter, Bravo gossip, and maybe a game of Plead the Fifth. Andy, dapper in his suit, greeted Leanne with his trademark grin, tossing out a playful jab about her Southern roots. "Leanne, is it true you've got more casserole recipes than comedy specials?" he quipped, setting a light tone. Leanne laughed, her eyes sparkling, and fired back, "Honey, I've got enough casseroles to feed this whole audience, and they'd still come back for seconds." The room erupted, and it seemed like the perfect start to another lively episode. But beneath the surface, a subtle tension simmered. Leanne, known for her down-to-earth persona, had heard whispers about Andy's knack for pushing guests into spicy territory. She'd prepared for fun but wasn't about to let anyone steer her off her comfort zone. As the show rolled on, Andy dove into questions about her sitcom, her family, and her meteoric rise in comedy at 59. The audience loved her stories about raising kids, navigating menopause, and finding fame later in life. Yet, Andy's probing style, his way of nudging guests toward controversy, started to creep in. "So, Leanne, you're the queen of Southern charm, but have you ever had beef with another comedian?" he asked, leaning forward with a mischievous glint. Leanne's smile tightened just a fraction, and she deflected with a joke about her mama's biscuit recipe being her only real feud. The crowd laughed, but Andy wasn't done. He pressed harder, asking about her thoughts on cancel culture in comedy, a topic that's tripped up many a guest. Leanne, ever the professional, kept her cool, saying, "I just tell stories about my life, Andy. Ain't nobody canceling my mama's cornbread recipe." The audience roared, but Andy's next move was about to shift the vibe. He pulled out a fan question from social media, one that seemed designed to stir the pot. "Leanne, some say your humor's too safe for today's edgy comedy scene. What do you say to that?" The question hung in the air, and the clubhouse grew quiet, waiting for her response. Leanne's eyes narrowed slightly, but her smile held firm as she processed Andy's question. The clubhouse, usually a bubble of Bravo-fueled fun, felt like it was holding its breath. Leanne leaned back in her chair, her floral dress catching the stage lights, and let out a soft chuckle. "Safe, honey, I talk about menopause, raising teenagers, and my husband snoring on a Netflix stage. If that's safe, then I guess I'm the safest daredevil you'll ever meet." The audience clapped, loving her quick wit, but Andy wasn't ready to let it go. He tilted his head, that sly grin spreading, and said, "Come on, Leanne, you know what they mean. Comedy's getting raw these days. People want the shock value. Are you ever tempted to go a little broken bar wilder?" The question felt like a challenge, and Leanne's fans and the audience shifted uncomfortably. She'd built her career on authenticity, weaving tales of Southern life that resonated with millions, not on shock or controversy. Leanne sipped her drink, buying a moment to think, then set it down with a deliberate clink. "Andy, I don't need to cuss or get mean to make folks laugh. My life's wild and no try raising 3 kids and going through hot flashes while touring 100 cities." The crowd cheered, but Andy, sensing a chance to spice things up, pivoted to a hotter topic. "Okay, fair, but let's talk about your sitcom, Leanne. Some ex-posts called it too wholesome for today's TV. Do you think you're out of touch with what younger audiences want?" The question stung, and Leanne's face betrayed a flicker of irritation. She was proud of her show, a Chuck Lorre-produced gem about a grandmother starting over after a divorce. It was heartfelt, funny, and true to her roots. "Out of touch," she said, her voice rising just a touch. "Andy, I'm a 59-year-old woman who's got fans from Gen Z to my mama's bridge club. I think I'm touching just fine." The audience hooted, but Andy, ever the provocateur, leaned in further. "But don't you think shows like Euphoria or The White Lotus are setting the bar now? Maybe Leanne needs a little more a broken bar edge. The room felt the shift. Leanne's warm demeanor was cracking under Andy's relentless push. She crossed her arms, her southern hospitality giving way to a steely resolve. Andy, my show's about real life, not some HBO fever dream. If folks want edge, they can watch cable after 10 p.m. The crowd laughed, but the tension was palpable. Andy, sensing he'd struck a nerve, decided to double down, pulling out a card with another fan question. All right, Leanne, last one. Some fans on X say you dodged the tough questions on your last Today Show appearance. Are you avoiding the hard stuff to keep that nice lady image? Leanne's smile vanished, and the clubhouse air grew thick with anticipation. The studio lights seemed to burn hotter as Leanne Morgan stared at Andy Cohen, her usual warmth replaced by a spark of defiance. The audience, sensing a shift, leaned forward in their seats, cocktails forgotten. Leanne's fingers tapped the armrest, her manicured nails catching the light. Andy, let me get this straight, she said, her Tennessee drawl sharp with purpose. You think I'm dodging tough questions? Honey, I've been married 33 years, raised 3 kids, and built a comedy career from scratch while half the world told me I was too old to start. Ain't nothing I'm scared to talk about. The crowd erupted, clapping and hollering, but Andy's eyes gleamed with the thrill of a brewing showdown. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to that conspiratorial tone he used to coax secrets from housewives. Okay, Leanne, let's get real then. There's buzz on X that you've been avoiding political humor because you don't want to alienate fans. Is that true, or are you just playing it safe again? The question was a landmine, and Leanne knew it. Political comedy was a too divisive for her brand of universal, family-focused humor. She took a deep breath, her face a mix of frustration and resolve. Andy, I don't do politics because I don't need to. Folks are tired of fighting over red and blue EO. They want to laugh about their kids, their husbands, their crazy aunts. That's my lane, and I'm driving it just fine. The audience cheered, but Andy wasn't satisfied. He flipped through his cards, pulling out another zinger. All right, but some comedians like Amy Schumer or Dave Chappelle, they tackle the big issues head on. Are you saying you don't have the guts for that? The word guts hit like a slap, and Leanne's eyes flashed. She sat up straighter, her voice steady but firm. Guts? Andy, I got on stage at 40-something, when most folks told me to stick to selling Tupperware. I talk about real life via menopause, divorce, raising kids in a world that's gone nuts. That's guts, honey, and I don't need to cuss out a politician to prove it. The crowd roared, but Andy, sensing he was losing control of the narrative, pushed further. Leanne, no one's saying you're not brave, but comedy's evolving. Some say you're stuck in the '90s, playing to church ladies. What's your take? The dig at her audience, yeah, her loyal fans across the line. Leanne's face hardened, and she set her drink down with a thud. My fans are real people, Andy, not just church ladies. They're moms, dads, kids, folks working hard and looking for a laugh. You wanna talk evolving? I'm selling out arenas while some of these edgy comics are fighting on X for clicks. The audience gasped, then cheered, as Leanne's southern fire blazed. Andy, caught off guard, tried to pivot, but Leanne was done playing nice. The Bravo Clubhouse was electric, the audience buzzing as Leanne Morgan's fiery retort hung in the air. Andy Cohen, usually unflappable, blinked, his grin faltering for a split second. He'd underestimated Leanne, expecting her southern charm to buckle under his probing, but Leanne, her face flushed with a mix of anger and pride, wasn't here to be anyone's punching bag. Andy, I came on this show to talk about my sitcom, my comedy, my life, not to defend myself against folks on X who don't know me from Adam, she said, her voice cutting through the room. The crowd was on her side, clapping wildly, but Andy, ever the showman, saw an opportunity to crank up the drama. Leanne, hold up, no one's attacking you, he said, raising his hands like a referee. We're just having fun, right? Let's lighten it up. How about a game? He signaled for the crew to bring out the props for what's in the glory hole. A cheeky WWHL game where guests guess mystery items. Leanne, however, wasn't in the mood for games. She crossed her arms, Her lips pursed. "Andy, I didn't come here to stick my hand in some box or dodge shade dressed up as questions. I'm here to talk about my work, my fans, my story." The audience murmured, sensing her frustration. Andy, trying to regain control, chuckled and said, "Come on, Leanne, it's just a little Bravo fun. You're a comedian, let's see that humor." But Leanne wasn't laughing. She stood up, smoothing her dress, and looked Andy dead in the eye. "You want humor? Here's some. I've been underestimated my whole life, and I'm still standing. I don't need your games or your gotcha questions to prove who I am." The crowd gasped, then burst into applause, as Leanne's words hit home. Andy, now visibly rattled, tried to pivot. "Leanne, we love you here. Let's talk about your Netflix special, Unspeakable Things. Tell us about that." But Leanne was done. She unclipped her mic, her hands steady despite the shaking in her voice. "Andy, I've got a special to promote, a sitcom to film, and fans who don't need me to play dirty to love me. I'm not here for your circus." With that, she turned and walked off the set, her heels clicking against the floor as the audience erupted in a mix of shock and cheers. Andy, left alone on the stage, tried to laugh it off. "Well, folks, that's live TV," he said, but the cameras caught his uneasy glance toward the wings. Leanne's exit wasn't just a memento, it was a statement. She wasn't here to be anyone's soundbite or drama bait. As she disappeared backstage, the clubhouse buzzed with whispers. Had Leanne just redefined her place in the comedy world? Backstage, the energy was chaotic as Leanne Morgan stormed through the green room, her team scrambling to keep up. The Watch What Happens Live crew exchanged wide-eyed glances, unsure whether to chase her or let her go. Leanne, her heart pounding, felt a mix of adrenaline and relief. She'd spent decades building a career on her terms, telling stories about her life, her family, her southern roots, and she wasn't about to let Andy Cohen turn her into a reality TV spectacle. Her manager, catching up to her, whispered, "Leanne, you okay?" "That was a broken bar." "Wow." Leanne paused, her breath steadying, and gave a small smile. "Honey, I'm finer than a frog's hair split 4 ways. I just needed to remind folks who I am." Back in the clubhouse, Andy was in damage control mode, pivoting to a segment with Kristen Johnston, the other guest, who gamely jumped into a Housewives reenactment to keep the show moving. But the audience was still buzzing about Leanne's exit. Social media exploded, with X posts lighting up. "Leanne Morgan just ate on WWHL. Andy tried it, and she wasn't having it. And Southern Queen said no to the Bravo drama." Fans praised her for standing her ground, while others speculated about what had pushed her to walk off. Some called it a publicity stunt, but those who knew Leanne's story, her rise from small-town gigs to Netflix stardom, saw it as pure authenticity. She wasn't playing the game, she was rewriting it. Leanne, now in her dressing room, scrolled through her phone, seeing the flood of support. She laughed softly at a fan's comment. Leanne said, "Not today, Andy." Her team urged her to issue a statement, but Leanne shook her head. "Let AM talk," she said. "I've got a special coming out November 4th, and that's what folks need to hear about." Her Netflix special, Unspeakable Things, was set to drop soon, packed with her signature humor about family, aging, and life's absurdities. She knew her fancy moms, grandmas, young folks who loved her relatability would show up for her, not for some manufactured drama. Back on set, Andy wrapped the show with his usual charm, but the night belonged to Leanne. Her walk-off wasn't just a moment of defiance, it was a declaration that she didn't need to play by Bravo's rules to shine. As she left the studio, stepping into the New York night, Leanne felt lighter. She'd faced the fire, walked through it, and come out stronger. Her fans were waiting, and she had more stories to tell on her terms. The fallout from Leanne Morgan's dramatic exit on Watch What Happens Live dominated headlines and X feeds for days. Blogs buzzed with think pieces. Did Leanne Morgan just redefine comedy on Bravo? And why Andy Cohen's questions crossed the line. Fans rallied behind Leanne, flooding her Instagram with heart emojis and comments like, "You showed AM, Leanne, stay true." Her walk-off became a cultural moment, sparking debates about authenticity in comedy and the pressure on celebrities to court controversy. Leanne, back in Tennessee, took it all in stride. She posted a cheeky Instagram video, sipping sweet tea and saying, "Y'all, I went to New York, had a little chat with Andy, and decided I'd rather be home eating cornbread." Catch my new special, Unspeakable Things, November 4th on Netflix. The post went viral, racking up millions of views. Her sitcom, Leanne, saw a surge in buzz, with viewers eager to see her bring her southern charm to the small screen. Andy Cohen, meanwhile, addressed the incident on his SiriusXM show, laughing it off but giving Leanne props. "She's a firecracker, and I respect her for standing her ground," he said, though some listeners caught a hint of shade. Behind the scenes, Bravo insiders whispered that the clash had been a ratings goldmine, with the episode trending higher than any Housewives reunion. Leanne's team fielded calls from talk shows and podcasts, all wanting her take, but she stayed focused on her work. Her Netflix special dropped to rave reviews, with critics calling it hilariously heartfelt and a masterclass in relatable comedy. The special's success proved what Leanne had been saying all along: her humor didn't need shock value to connect. At a comedy show in Nashville, Leanne addressed the incident with a wink, telling the crowd, "I went on a fancy New York show, and let's just say I left before they could make me play any weird games." The audience roared, and Leanne felt at home. Her walk-off hadn't just been about Andy or Bravo, it was about protecting the voice she'd fought so hard to share. As she prepared for her next tour and a potential second season of Leanne, she knew her fans were with her.